an American, I eat apple pie, play baseball under its blue skies. As an American, I travel this land and follow her roads wherever I can. From sea to shining sea, I've seen a lot, and none of it will be forgot. And when my country called, I gave my all as an American. I was born into freedom in a wonderful land of mountains and plains, rivers and lakes. Forever American is what I am. A past as rich as any can be. My father's worked hard to give this to me. I love this place I come from. To live another way I cannot foresee. As an American, I eat apple pie, play baseball under its blue skies. As an American, I travel this land and follow her roads wherever I can. From sea to shining sea, I've seen a lot, and none of it will be forgot. And when my country called, I gave my all as an American. As an American, I've been to the peaks of majestic mountains where the air is sweet. I've watched the eagle as it soars in beautiful skies that just can't be ignored. And by this country I'll always stand, for freedom and liberty for every man. When times are hard and things get rough, America always stands ready and rough. As an American, I eat apple pie, play baseball under its blue skies. As an American, I travel this land and follow her roads wherever I can. From sea to shining sea, I've seen a lot, and none of it will be forgot. And when my country called, I gave my all as an American. And when my country called, I gave my all as an American. Forever American is what I am.
Well, hello. How are you guys all doing tonight? Hopefully you guys can all hear me all right. God bless you guys. God bless America. How you guys doing tonight? Hi, Rodney. Hi, Tia. Hi, Richard. Hi, Alex. Hi, Matt. Hi, James. Hi, Nana. Hi, Richard. How you guys doing? Let's see if I got everybody. I think so. If you're not in here, if you're in here already and you haven't hit the chat, please do. We definitely appreciate that. Hit that like button and share us out so we can get it out there to everybody needs to know what's going on. Special counsel, Jack Smith, has been investigating Donald Trump for retention of classified records, efforts to overturn the result of the 2020 election and everything else. Those so far efforts have cost $9 million taxpayer money just the first several months, according to documents just released. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, because so far they have found nothing that is not covered under the Presidential Record Act. Yes, they're putting them in court and everything, but courts, of course, have to find the truth. They have to show Presidential Record Act supersedes any of this classified information supposedly that Donald Trump kept. He may be indicted on 37 felony counts alleging he illegally kept classified records at Mar-a-Lago and refused the government's demand to give them back. But according to the Presidential Records Act, there is no felony charges. There is no charges, period, under that act, of course, and he was a former president, and probably will be again. I mean, pleading not guilty to both the crimes, of course, and his lawyers are probably going forward, even though Trump has denied any wrongdoing and slamming the prosecution for attempts to hurt his bid to reclaim the White House 2024. Smith has also been digging into efforts by Trump and his allies to undo Joe Biden's election victory. First of all, Joe Biden shouldn't be in office at all right now. Let's be honest. The amount of information that's came out, direct bribery alone, forbids you from being in the presidential office. He received payments from foreign nations while he was vice president. That is bribery. He did that, or he received payments in order to do favors for them. And that's exactly what it sounds like. This is ridiculous. At this point, he should already be impeached. Why he's still sitting in office, I have no clue. And he should be impeached on treason because classified documents, of course, were found about Ukraine in his possession. And we know he was dealing directly with Ukraine. And even got the investigator that was going after Burisma fired. And according to that is treason. I mean, acting against America's own interests directly to a country that is not sovereign with the United States or an ally. Even if they were an ally at that point, it would still be treason at that. But watching this, of course, and watching the ridiculous amount of money the government is throwing away, not just the Trump's case, but into the war in Ukraine and everything that's happening there and around the world. We're going to talk about what's been happening in China and the buildup of why China is actually getting mad. Because everybody's talking about stuff, but nobody actually knows why. So we're going to talk about how many bases we put up just in the last year and how much it's cost the United States. Of course, Biden is heading to Europe on this upcoming agenda for NATO alliance. NATO is falling apart, though. The king and a war are on, of course, Biden's agenda. Biden, of course, leaves Sunday for Europe, where he will spend time with three nations trending to alliances that have been trusted by or tested by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. After arriving in London, Biden would, of course, meet the next day with King Charles III for the first time since he was crowned. Next centerpiece to his trip is the NATO summit, which, of course, the NATO summit is what I've been talking about for a while. Not only are we sending cluster munitions that are heading to Ukraine and possibly chemical weapons, cannot confirm nor deny that, but I'm saying chemical weapons were supposedly destroyed yesterday when arms went to Ukraine. That's all I'm going to say. The alliance leaders are debating war and revisiting plans for dealing with Russian aggression. Now, of course, this was not supposed to be on the NATO summit at all. It was about bringing Ukraine into the fold and giving security guarantees. But debating the war and revising plans for dealing with Russian aggression, that sounds a lot like jumping directly into the war. I mean, Biden on Tuesday is expected to celebrate the expanding of the alliance with Finland, its newest NATO member. But we'll see. I mean, this trip is definitely going to be a big problem one way or another, showcasing the president's push on the world stage. Biden arrives in London, of course, Sunday night, expected to have a full schedule of meetings. It's going to be shaky. The whole stance of the whole entire country is relying on what's going to happen next. Coke found in the White House, yeah. No official statement from Sleepy Joe, but I imagine it might have been his or his son's. Who knows how he stays awake when he's supposed to be talking, when he needs a nap every 10 minutes. But watching all this happen, Poland, of course, freaking out, moving massive amounts of troops to the eastern border amidst Wagner fears. Poland began moving troops over to the east side of the country Saturday today. The defense minister said, rising concerns and NATO members of the presence of the Wagner Group fighters in Belarus could lead to increased tensions on the border. President Vladimir Putin's decision to offer the mercenary fighters the group the choice to relocate to Belarus has led to fears, of course, of Eastern NATO members that their presence will cause greater instability in the region. But we already know the president or the leader of the Wagner Group is back in Russia talking right now with Russian forces. So there's a big question about what's actually happening here. The demonstration of readiness in response to attempts to destabilize the border of Poland, of course. Poland sending police officers as well, 500 extra police to shore up security at the border of Belarus. Really, I think this is a big joke going on in Poland. The big concern is Germany. Germany, for the first time, elected a far-right candidate for the first time since the Nazi era, raising, of course, concerns. But not only that, the far-right candidate has come out with some statements, not exactly against the United States, but against the president that sits in office right now, without directly saying it's against him. Basically saying America needs to step out of other countries' business and allow countries to rule themselves with their own laws and their own rules. I mean, obviously, he doesn't trust the media, and he feels too many migrants have entered the country, far-right party alternative for Germany, and he hopes to improve everything that's not going well in, of course, his eyes. I think the fact that so many people voted for an alternative for Germany, has already given it legitimacy. I mean, this is obvious. Germans are afraid of what's happening to their country. Mass amount of immigration, just like happening here. Destabilization of their dollar. Problems in the crime rates drastically climbing. And we know the U.S. is forcing our woke laws on every country we jump into, and every country we're involved in now. They're not liking it. They're standing up now. And this is why NATO is starting to fall apart. It's proven that people are getting fed up with this American push, of course, upon the countries, causing pressure and cause tensions inside the countries as they're having to take on massive amounts of migrants. That's not helping anybody. Nobody's benefiting, besides, of course, the politics, from saying this stuff. It's extremely sad what is happening, watching what's over the past few months, past year. Countries in the European Union getting destroyed by the amount of migrants coming in. It is sad. It is absolutely sad watching what the U.S. has done to multiple countries around the world. As being a U.S. citizen, I know the U.S. wants to do good. It's not a question. The question is, wanting to do good and doing good are not the same thing. Of course, we watch our country over and over again push for these greatness and supposedly democratic countries so they can have freedoms like ours. But do they want them? Do they want our country? Because we're not free. We're far from it. We have more laws than most countries in the world. We have the highest incarceration rate in the world. Even China has less people incarcerated than us. But yet the population's almost 10 times our population at this point. Just think about that for 1 second. China has less people, period, incarcerated, period, than the U.S. times 10. The U.S. 10 times of what the U.S. has incarcerated. Or we have 10 times of what China has incarcerated. Sorry. Make sure I say that properly. It is absolutely crazy. We have tens of thousands of Chinese military-age immigrants coming across the border. when every Chinese man has to, of course, serve in the military? Nobody's talking about that. That's a big issue coming up and coming forward. Well, why is China getting to this point? Let's talk about the pressure, of course, that we've been pushing on China here lately. And it's not getting any easier. China, of course, has grave concerns for their freedoms. And at this point, I don't blame them. If we just look at the map of what's been happening just in the recent months, these are new military bases that have been strung upon the islands, leaving Japan and going to Taiwan, including airfields being put on them for the U.S. military. All these are U.S. military assets being put on these islands. And this is just the beginning. This happened just this year so far, within the last 6 months. And China should not be threatened by the U.S. and should not be feeling like they need to retaliate. Who's like the bully in this situation? Let's be honest. I mean, when we're looking at the actual map, we can see the amount of bases just put in the last 6 months, and the military spending that has gone into this is extremely astronomical. It's sad to see what's happening. Yeah, we have the highest rate for per capita than any other country of incarcerated people, period. And it shows. But when we go, of course, try to push our forces upon other countries like China, which is the second leader of world power, obviously our biggest enemy if they try to do anything, this is sad. We're saying, of course, China is raising these tensions. China is obviously not building military bases right next to us at this rate. They want to put another surveillance base in Cuba, but yet we just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 bases amongst an island chain that's running right alongside of China. 13 bases we have developed in the last 6 months. And that's not the total amount. If we look, of course, if we go down further, we have more bases along the other island chains that block the South China Sea. This, of course, will be limiting access for China's shipping lanes and China's ability to ship goods out. We practically have surrounded China between Japan, the island chain, of course, leading Japan, and, of course, the Philippines and everything else. We have surrounded China. This is ridiculous. Yeah, military members get paid nothing. These are military bases. These are not trafficking bases. These are actual military bases, which is absolutely ridiculous. Saying that China, of course, is this big bully. And I understand China has plenty of human rights violations. Plenty. But this is their own country, and we have physically surrounded them. You know, when they say don't poke the bear, don't corner a raccoon or a rabid animal, we're doing it as we speak. Of course, it's going to have grave consequences for us in the future. As we know, their Navy has, every 4 years, produced basically the entire Britain Navy for the last 12 years. Every 4 years, turning out an entire force of what the British Navy is. Now, of course, surpassing our own Navy capabilities. What's next? This is troubling. Taiwan, of course, or China's moving up and, of course, stepping up pressure, sending warships and fighter jets near Taiwan. Of course, Yellen is visiting Beijing at the time. People's Liberation Army sent 13 aircrafts and 6 vessels into the airspace and waters around Taiwan over the past 24 hours. Overlapping the United States Treasury's visit with Beijing amongst and mitigating strained relationship. I mean, Taiwan's defense minister said they're monitoring the situation. But the thing is, we believe in one China policy, but we're arming Ukraine or Taiwan to fight against China. we entered a de facto civil war with any country, like we're doing with China, we would be in the wrong according to international law. We're sending weapons that are against international law to Ukraine. That's without a question. Just the cluster munitions violate that. Selling weapons to a sovereign territory of another nation that does not want them sold there is, again, a violation of international law. The United States doesn't care about the law unless it affects them directly. The United States only uses laws against other countries to burnish sanctions and control development, not allowing countries to succeed themselves. What's happening in China, though, is China has very prolifically built up their stockpile, built up their munitions, built up their capabilities over the last several years. They outnumber our Navy ships, outnumber our technology on Navy ships, and outnumber our missile capabilities. That's without a question. Of course, we're still saying, well, our Air Force is bigger, but is it? Because we don't have the real numbers from Chinese Air Force built. The last numbers we got were 4 years ago of how many planes China had. The last true numbers. We know the amount of ships they've been turning out is almost 2 a week. I imagine they're doing airplanes a little bit faster than that. So be prepared. We're seeing what's happening in Russia or Ukraine. We see that we're trying to pull NATO into this by the 11th or 12th, into this war. We already know that because Biden is heading to Europe to talk about this. War is on the agenda. It's not a question. When they say war is on the agenda, war is on the agenda. And they've officially said it in this statement. We will send a clear message. NATO will send a clear message against Russia's aggression. And they're not playing around. Hey, from adult sources. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy what is happening and watching this demolishment of our country's constitution, of course, daily. Biden's still fighting freedom of speech. Biden's still putting pressure on any country that it can, including our own. Our own citizens are getting pressed upon by this administration. I can't just say Biden at that point. We know the FBI is monitoring hundreds of people for nothing. For nothing more than showing up to a school board meeting or showing up to a protest. But yet we have how many Congress people showed up on the steps of the Supreme Court and protested and got arrested? How many Democratic Congress members went to the Supreme Court and protested and got arrested and got released with a $50 fine for going inside the Supreme Court and protesting? Now, we remember what happened on January 6th. You know, the people were led into the Congress and the House, and those people are still in jail. They didn't get a $50 fine. They're being held on ridiculous charges, but most of them are just charged with trespassing but haven't gone to court and probably won't get a court date for a long time. But the more seriousness is when we look at the amount of Congress people, which you can easily look up yourself, that's not a question. There's a U.S. government, of course, govtrack.us keeps these numbers, showing what's happened, when, who got charged, whether they got charged with what they got charged with. But you look back on January 23rd, Andrea Cortez and Khalif both got in trouble for stuff that happened with the Met Gala, receiving gifts and other gifts as well. Nobody talked about that. Then we go under more Democrat, another Democrat, unspecified corruption. Of course, the Democrat that owned Hawaiian Airlines stock and put a bill on the floor violating ethics directly because he would benefit from it. Just ridiculous. more investigations into the solicitation and accepting gifts by Caroline Maloney, another Democrat. And then let's start this list. We have Andy Levine, Alan Adams, Carol Bush, Catherine Clark, Madeline Dean, Victoria Escobar, Sarah Jacobs, Barbara Lee, Andy Levine, Carol Maloney, Alexander Cortez, Omar herself, Anita Presley, Jane Sokimviska, I can't even pronounce her name, Jackie Spears, Rashid Tava, Neve Vasquez, Bonnie Weston, Judy Chu, all arrested outside the Supreme Court between the July 19th and July 23rd for protesting. No, all inside the Supreme Court building. All arrested inside the Supreme Court building for protesting amongst the 4 days of protest. Most of them, of course, were on the 19th, but some followed up days after. All of them, Democrats, not a single one in jail. According to the reports published by the committee, indicated they paid a $50 fine for their ethics violation, no criminal charges. No criminal charges for Democrats that are sitting, of course, that supposedly say that January 6th was an insurrection. Did the same thing to the Supreme Court. The highest court in the land, higher than the House and Senate, way higher than them. And they get a $50 fine, but yet they're still American citizens sitting in prisons for over 2.5 years. What is wrong with this country? You think your freedoms are truly free? This is a joke. Looking at the just other charges, I mean, I could go back just this year on charges of what's happened so far this year, and it's ridiculous. 90% of people charged were Democrats with crimes. Everything from bribery to solicitation to bribery. Another bribery scandal was Michael Mayers. He pled guilty. And voting illegally in a federal election. Wow. And he didn't get charged with treason or anything with that. Illegal voting is a treasonous act. This is ridiculous, looking at these one after another. Ethics committee had to supposedly investigate these people. And 90% of it gets voted to dismiss right away. So we never actually get the investigation. These aren't even those aren't even the people I'm talking about. I'm only talking about the people that actually paid a fine or got charged with something in the end. Relevant fines, relevant fines, relevant fines. That's all they get. It's ridiculous looking at this. Just like Omar, when she omitted required financial disclosures and accepted an advance on her memoriam, the Ethics Committee voted unanimously in December 2021 to recommend the House Committee of Ethics to dismiss her case. Do you know why they dismissed her case? Because the House rules have no guidelines on how to proceed in this situation. So no further action shall be taken. So she fraudulently did not disclose her financial disclosures as a representative of the United States house and nothing happened. So they didn't have a rule. Republicans were fined a whole bunch. Oh, wait, that was for failure to wear a mask on the House floor. It's a joke. It is a joke. One standard for thee and another standard for the American public. That's what's happening. Ukraine's counteroffensive is slowing down even more than it did yesterday. Watching the erosion of American freedoms and what's supposed to be happening for Americans is ridiculous. Wasteful spending. Our government is so corrupt that they have more criminals in office than the people in prison. It's time for people to stand up. It's time for people to stand up. If you don't use your rights, you lose your rights. I want to know, honestly, when your children grow up and have to sneak out of the house to go to a protest for their freedom to speak, knowing that their friend just died last week at the last protest because he was there speaking out against the government, and the government decided to kill the people that showed up. How are you going to feel then? This is happening, whether we like it or not. The time is past. The time is now. Stand up for the rights that you are given by the Constitution, or guaranteed by the Constitution, given to you by God. That's what the Constitution technically says. They're granted by God and guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States. That's not a lightly taken statement. God-given unalienable rights that are backed with protections by the Constitution. That's what they are. Watching the government erode those rights is just sickening. But it's happening every day. Unless we stand up and do something about it, it will be our children and our grandchildren asking us where we were. Didn't we stand up when this was happening? Didn't we do something to make a difference? And it doesn't have to be something huge. It could be something, the smallest differences. Just writing letters to your congressman, writing letters to the people that are supposed to be in charge. It's sad. It is sad that we're in this situation. It is sad that the situation will probably get worse. We can hope it'll get better. We don't know where it's going to end up. We don't know where we're going to end up at this point. We are American citizens. We are supposed to be free from this tyranny and prosecution and indoctrination, but we're not. Our country has a long way to go. We just have to be prepared. I want to say God bless you guys. God bless America. Stand tall, stand strong, because everybody has to get prepared for this. Good night. Be strong. And we will see you guys, of course, Monday night with more information of what's happening and when it's happening. Till then, God bless you all.